Hey everybody, I wanted to do a quick video about mixing epoxy for those who may be starting out. You know, it might not be the most exciting video you've ever seen, but those kinds of things are pretty helpful. So I'm just going to get some gloves on real quick, and I'm trying to make sure I'm not out of frame, so I'm actually standing on a stool that I almost fell off of because I'm really bad about staying in the frame. So I'm going to put these to the side for now, but I use little medicine cups and I mark them with A and B, parts A and part B. So if you're using an art resin or a countertop epoxy, it's really important that you have equal parts. So believe it or not, even though they're already marked, I put a little line on them because epoxy is so thick that once you get it on the inside, it's hard to tell where the lines are. So this is part A. I'm using faux rizzle. Sorry, I'm like right in your face with the thing. Using faux rizzle. This is actually something that they sent me a sample of to test something. I have had less of a skin reaction using faux rizzle, and this is a new one that they're working on. It's removing even more chemicals, so far I really like it. It's a little bit thinner than Nouveau. I don't know if anybody has used Nouveau. So I'm going to fill this one up. You don't normally need this much to do like just one cup, but I'm going to fill this up because I need to resin some paintings that have some places where the resin separated, so I'm going to do a fresh coat. And if I have more, then I'll do some paintings I haven't done yet. So please like and subscribe if you haven't already. We really appreciate it. If I've said on some previous videos, we're hoping to do a little bit better about posting tutorials and maybe even doing some live social media stuff. My husband and I do fluid art. He does a little bit more epoxy than I do epoxy too, but mostly to seal things. I use it on tumblers and I use it on some of my paintings. I seal vases and stuff with it. I do enjoy doing resin pieces. But because I have kind of a reaction to a lot of epoxy, I've had to limit to doing a few things at a time. But that's one of the reasons I have been using faux rizzle, is for me it has really helped. I love Stone Coat. I love KS resin. And I can certainly post links. But I have a pretty significant skin reaction to some, and I don't think it's because they're bad epoxies. I think I just have a reaction. So anyway, I think I'm too far away from you guys. I like these little stir drink sticks, and I'll try to remember to post them in the comments below, because they're not as porous as using like a popsicle stick, although I must say popsicle sticks are a little easier from the size, just to scrape and stuff like that. I like to put part B in the mixing cup first because it's thinner, and it just seems like it goes a lot faster when you do that. And then again, we did equal parts, and I usually eyeball them and just to make sure. So this sample that they sent me has more of a consistency of an epoxy that's a little bit thinner when you're mixing it, sort of like Stone Coat is. And I think that makes it a little bit easier to work with, because Nouveau is wonderful, but there's like this sweet spot where you can you kind of need it to get mixed up well enough, and then you need it to set well enough so that the chemicals begin to react with each other. But like, there's this like sweet spot where you might think it's still not fully mixed and needs more time, and it's already really thick. And so that has been one of my problems. I've actually ruined a couple of cups understating how far mixed it was. So yeah, I was hoping I'm making up words. I was hoping to do an epoxy coat on this cup that I'm really trying to finish in the next day or two, and but I just put a flat coat of clear spray paint over the alcohol ink, and like, it's dry to the surface, but you're not supposed to handle it for an hour, so I don't want to waste a layer of epoxy and have it not cure right. So fortunately, I think I'm gonna have to wait till tomorrow, which is a bummer because I really want to have this cup finished by like Wednesday, and I feel like I'm coming down to the wire, but I'm resourceful, so we'll get it done. So what I'm gonna do with this epoxy is I'm going to resin over a painting I did yesterday with resin and see if I can't get its final coat going. So again, we've scraped the sides and the bottom. So now you're going to slowly stir. I'm not really good about super slow because I am impatient and I want things to hurry up a little faster. But with this particular resin, you stir for 3 minutes. So I literally watch the clock. And then they recommend that you stir for 3 more minutes. Oh, I'm not even under the camera anymore. Lovely. They recommend that you stir for 3 more minutes. That was my stool. And then move it into another container. So, as you can maybe see in the camera, as these two parts mix, they start to turn a little bit cloudy. That's because they're mixing. One is resin and one is a hardener. So I don't really usually like to mix big batches like this at a time because I feel like it takes longer. But it's really hard to be committed to doing a resin cover and then of a painting and then have not enough, and then while you're mixing some more it's starting to set. So it's just not the greatest plan. So we have mixed for about a minute, and if I was more committed to this being fast, then I would hyperlapse this, but I'm just not. I don't want to get resin on my phone. So I would suggest that you definitely wear gloves, because epoxy is a nightmare to sometimes get off your skin or off your clothes. Don't do this stuff in clothes that you want to keep in good condition. I'm wearing a painting shirt, it has paint all over it, probably has epoxy on it in some places. Try to get the sides and the bottom, because again, you don't really want parts that are not mixed. You know, don't be paranoid about it, but like some of the mistakes I think people make with epoxy is they rush, and this is not a fast process, you know. You just gotta learn to enjoy the stir. It's sort of like mixing paint. The longest process of paint pouring is mixing paint. It's a pain in the butt. But you just have to decide that it's therapeutic and know that it comes with the territory. So again, I would so appreciate it if you would like and subscribe. Feel free to share. We are really hoping to increase our YouTube presence a lot in the next year, because you know, this is a lot of fun for us. My husband and I both do art. I do a lot of Tumblr art, paint pouring, and of course that goes into a whole different branch of things. We've made jewelry out of resin, done some cool vase pours and hydro dips and all kinds of fun things. Just did my first actual resin painting. My husband and I did a project. He actually built a table for my mother-in-law, and we worked on it together. We did the tabletop with a resin pour, and then we did shower walls redo in our bathroom. You know, we're still learning just like everybody else, but that's why we like to share with you guys, because we learn a lot by watching people and that kind of stuff too. So it's been about 3 minutes, so now we're gonna do what seems like it's completely redundant, except there's a piece of fuzz in there that would have never come out of our epoxy. And we're gonna pour this into another cup. And then we're going to stir it for another 3 minutes. Now, depending on the brand that you use, you may not need to do that. I'm using Faux Rizzle, and it has been my experience that you just can't rush the process. I have used Pro Marine. I like Pro Marine. I had a lot of reaction to Pro Marine. It's also thinner and it's less UV resistant. Oh, sorry, heat resistant. I don't know about UV. I'd have to check the specs on that. Let me not lie. But when we first started doing tumblers, I used it. It's very economical. It's easy to work with. A lot of people have fish eyes with it. I didn't have fish eyes. I like KS resin. The only thing I didn't like about KS resin is it tends to get so thick that I did get bubbles that were hard to torch out. But that was also mostly on tumblers. I didn't have that problem with art, like flat things. Somebody told me that after 2 to 3 minutes you can spray it very lightly with isopropyl alcohol and the bubbles will pop. And somebody said that about Faux Rizzle Nouveau too. I tried it with this one, and I don't think it was hard enough yet, and it created a ton of fish eyes. So I think that there's a sweet spot if you're going to do that. And I obviously hadn't found it. I did it on a layer that wasn't the final layer though, so it wouldn't be a major bummer. And then I torched it and spread it around a little bit more to reduce that. But what I have found with some of these that were, like with this one, which is still not available for purchase yet, they're going out of their way to make these a little bit safer to use, because epoxy is, sometimes it doesn't bother anyone, and sometimes it causes people to have weird responses to it. So what I appreciate about Faux Rizzle is they keep trying to make it better and less chemically reactive. So this particular one, they took another ingredient out somehow. I'm not a chemist, so don't pretend to know how. But they took an ingredient out, and they're trying to continue to build on what they did with Nouveau. What's tricky about Nouveau is because they removed some of the BPAs and stuff like that. The chemical compounds take a little bit longer to bind together. So you have to give them a break. So like when you rush the process, like I was super frustrated when I first started using it. And I had bought 2 gallons of it on some sort of a Black Friday deal, and I was thinking I was like upgrading, and I was big mad because the learning curve was significant. But when I realized the impact I was saving my skin, I was like, I need to learn to like this epoxy. So I had a few powwows where they helped me and helped me try to understand it, and I told them why I wanted to like it. I have not tried the regular Faux Rizzle UV, and I want to try it and see if I have a similar reaction, because it seems like it's more like this, a little bit easier to use. But I haven't tried it yet. So I'm hoping to do that. But I am learning to like Nouveau. I've been using this beta one for a little bit, and I really like it so far. It's not perfect, but I mean, no epoxy is perfect. But I have enjoyed using it, and so far very minimal skin irritations. My skin gets really dry when it's exposed to epoxy, so I don't know if that's what, but the other ones make it itch. Like, it makes my skin itch so bad. And so I end up scratching and like huge rashes and stuff. It's really bad. So I figured if this one's a little bit more and a little bit more cantankerous, if it saves my skin, it's probably well worth it. Okay, so now what we would do if we were using this particular epoxy is we would let it sit for a little bit. A lot of people use epoxy too soon and it's stringy and they don't get a good coat. So if you're using it over glitter, especially a chunky glitter, if you're not getting a pretty decent coat, it's going to be shallow in areas. It could separate. You could get fish eyes. So, you know, like, go prepare whatever you're going to make or something instead of rushing. So if you see it up close, I don't know how well you can see this in the camera, but it's less cloudy. It's getting clear, but what's happening is a bunch of those bubbles are starting to come to the top and pop. And so I let it sit for a little bit until it kind of gets almost like a little foam of bubbles, and then I start using it. You can also wait till you feel the side of the cup and it starts to warm up a little bit, but depending on the epoxy you use, that can mean that it's already set a lot more than you wanted it to, and that may not be ideal. So you just kind of have to know what it is that you're looking for in the brand that you use. But anyway, I encourage you to wear a mask. Protect yourself, because you never know if something's going to irritate you that doesn't irritate another person. Definitely wear gloves. I recommend wearing long sleeves where you can. It also kind of helps protect things from, like, we have dogs and I have like a little dog hair on my sleeve right there. So I'm always just paying attention to what I might potentially hover over with. But long sleeves also help with my skin not getting as dry from the epoxy. Anyway, I hope this helps. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment, and feel free to follow us on social media at Hope Designs SAT. Thanks. Bye.